Hello, I'm Prem Tipster, and I'm going to help you in deciding who to captain for Game Week 4. I've been gathering data and analysing it in great depth to assist you in making the safest pick. Last game week was quite unpredictable, where the likes of De Bruyne and Werner blanked, whilst Jamie Vardy banged in a hat-trick against Manchester City. Hopefully we don't have another freakish week. I believe there are 5 decent candidates available this week: Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Mohamed Salah, Kevin De Bruyne, Danny Ings and Raul Jimenez. I did consider adding Sadio Mane to the list. If you're going to captain a Liverpool player, I just think he's a bit behind Salah in the pecking order due to the penalty appeal. Just make sure you watch through the whole video rather than skipping to the end to see my pick, because you can make your own judgment based on the stats displayed on the screen. I'm going to be comparing data from the first 3 game weeks this season to get a gist of the player's current form, which I understand isn't much to go off, especially for Kevin De Bruyne, who has only played 2 matches so far. Nevertheless, it's all recent and relevant data. As usual, the following statistics will exclude penalties. I will touch up on the penalty appeal as its own attribute though. Let's kick things off with the non-penalty expected goals per 90 minutes. Calvert-Lewin has 1.4, as the poacher keeps getting into the goal scoring positions. Jimenez has just over a third of him, which, believe it or not, is still good. If he had that number over the course of a season and he matched it with goals, providing he played every match, then he would have 19 goals from open play. As a forward, Ings should be getting more in the danger areas. He displayed clinical finishing throughout last season, and he's continued to do so at this moment in time. Salah as a winger is just 0.02 behind Ings. He did average 0.57 throughout the whole of last season and 0.54 the season before, which just goes to show he will more than likely improve on his current figure. As expected, Kevin De Bruyne is last, which moves us nicely onto the expected assist stats. He tops the list with almost an expected assist every other game. Salah being the only other player that doesn't play as a forward, he tallied up 0.28, which is pretty consistent with his non-penalty expected goal stats. It's also consistent with his expected assist numbers from the past 2 seasons. Jimenez is the most creative forward, with a number that is low and not much to go by. The other 2 have unreliable figures and might as well just be 0, which, to be fair, you can't expect them to create many chances from their positions. When you look at the expected goal involvements overall, Calvert-Lewin dominates this area because his expected goals is so high. De Bruyne's outstanding expected assist put him up in second place, but still not half of the Everton centre forward. Jimenez and Salah are still expected to get more than 1 return every other game, and Ings is only expected to get 1 return in every 3 games. Their expected goal involvements alone is difficult to relate to FPL scoring system, so if we apply a ×5 multiplier to the midfielders' goals, a ×4 multiplier to the forwards' goals, and a ×3 multiplier to all of their assists, then we can see a comparison that is more relevant to owning the players as FPL assets. Even with just a 4 times multiplier applied to his goals, and bonus points not being considered, Calvert-Lewin's form blows the other players out of the water. As midfielders, Salah and De Bruyne have respectable numbers, even more so Jimenez as a forward. Ings obviously doesn't fare very well, with plenty of room for improvement. Now let's have a look at the actual goals and assists. Something we need to remember is that all of the players haven't played the same amount of minutes, so we'll compare each player's returns to their own expected goal involvements and not each other's. Ings and DCL have been the most clinical, both outscoring their non-penalty expected goals by 1.08. This backs up my point I made earlier about Ings carrying on his good finishing from last season. Jimenez has matched the Saints front man for goals, but with his expected goals being considerably higher, he hasn't been finishing half as good as Ings has. Salah only registered 1 goal from open play, and Kevin De Bruyne has had none. It's important not to forget that he did play 1 less game than the other players though. Even though his minutes were less, the assist king was the only player to get an assist out of this week's captain options. After all the discussion about Calvert-Lewin's form, he is the only player on this list that is not on penalties. Usually I would say that it's not a sustainable way of obtaining points, which is true, but there have been 20 penalties awarded so far this season, so there is more penalty peel than ever. Something that puts De Bruyne above the other penalty takers on the list, Leeds have given away the most penalties so far in the Premier League this season, which is 3 in total. It wouldn't be a fair comparison without looking at the quality of the opposition's defence. You might have noticed that Ings doesn't have reliable underlying stats. Based on last season, we know that he has got it in his locker, and him having a fixture against the worst defence in the league to date is a good chance to capitalise on more goal scoring opportunities. I'm now going to give you an idea of how bad West Brom's defence has been. If you're a Baggies fan, then you might want to cover your ears. They've conceded the most goals, shots, shots on target, shots in the box, shots from set pieces, big chances, and have the worst expected goals against stats. In all fairness to them, they did face Leicester, Everton and Chelsea, but there are no excuses for conceding an average of 3.7 goals per game. Fulham weren't much better with only one less goal conceded, however, they did have nearly 4 expected goals less than West Brom. That might be because they only faced Arsenal, Leeds and Aston Villa though. Leeds did concede a few less goals than Fulham, but they did have more expected goals against. Fair enough, they did play Liverpool at Anfield. They also played Fulham and Sheffield United though. 2 teams that Aston Villa kept a clean sheet against, whereas Leeds conceded 3 goals in both of those matches combined. Up to this point, we can see that there is a trend of the 3 promoted sides leaking goals at the back. Brighton have conceded 6 goals, and looking at their XGA figure, they conceded almost double of what was expected of them. Their XGA suggests that this fixture could be tough for Calvert-Lewin to operate in the danger areas. Salah's opponents, Aston Villa, have great defensive stats so far. It's important to take into consideration that they didn't play in game week 1, plus they did only play against Fulham and Sheffield United in their first 2 fixtures. This game will be a real test to see what the Villains' defence is really made of. Looking at the home advantage, Calvert-Lewin, Ings and Jimenez have the benefit of playing on their home turf, whilst Salah and De Bruyne have to play away from home. Something to note is that both players have only scored 4 goals in each of their away games last season. That's a slightly bigger put-off for Salah than the Belgian, because he assisted 4 goals less in that period of time. Let's take a look at the bookmakers' odds. I will use Unibet as they are the only bookies that I can find who offer an assist market. Just bear in mind, the odds might differ to when the video is being recorded. They're based on putting a £1 bet on the anytime goal scorer or assist market. It isn't as much about the actual probability due to the profit margins, it's just to compare which players the bookies are backing to do well. They're stating that Salah and Ings are the players that are most likely to score. They're also saying that Kevin De Bruyne is by far the most likely to get an assist, and they think he's the most likely to get at least 1 return. It's fair to say that they don't fancy Calvert-Lewin by giving him the second least chance of scoring and not even having him on the assist market. Fantasy Football Fix is also laying Calvert-Lewin to be the weakest candidate, and they agree with the betting company that Jimenez is the second worst pick. Even though Calvert-Lewin has been on top form, I think his fixture, the bookies' odds and his fixed projected points rule him out. The same applies to Jimenez, who has the easier fixture but his probability of getting a double figure haul is quite low. Choosing between the remaining 3 contenders hasn't been the easiest decision to make. They're all predicted to get high scores by the fix, with De Bruyne being the lowest, which I believe is incorrect. So my captain pick for game week 3 is Kevin De Bruyne. I'm going with him because I believe he is the safest pick to get at least 1 return. I didn't pick Ings even with his easy fixture because he hasn't been getting into many goal scoring positions, so that makes him more unreliable. Salah would be my second choice if I had to choose. I just fancied De Bruyne to expose the Leeds defence more than Salah to expose the Villa defence. His non-penalty expected goal involvement is something to go by, and the betting odds support my pick based on him being the most reliable option. I hope I assisted you in making the right decision on this week's captaincy. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of my captain analysis videos. There will be one posted here every single game week in good time before the deadline. If you enjoyed the video then please leave a like because it really helps me out. I wish you all the best in game week 4 and I'll see you here again next week.